So today I'm here with Peter Falker, and he has meditation on this podcast that he runs with his friend in United States, and he does it to facilitate the access to meditation to people. Is it, Peter? Am I right?
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. That's
Okay. So, Peter, can I ask you, how was your first contact with meditation? And so, what do you work with? How is meditation for you? Can you explain that for us?
Yeah. Where did it all start for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been in the investment management business for as long as I can remember. That's been my career, and so I manage other people's money. That's my job. I'm an investment advisor, and over the last 20 years, I've been raising a family and running a small business doing this, and we've been through some pretty dramatic periods of time in the stock market and the economy with 9/11. When my first child was only like 1.5, and my second child was not yet quite born. He was born the next month. So there was a lot of stress in that environment. And then we hit the second financial crisis. And I think for me, I internalize a lot of things. I've always been one of those people that would always, whenever I was asked how I was doing, I would just say I'm fine, kind of deflect it. I never really opened up. And so when I started having these stressful events in my life, raising a small family, going through some really difficult times with business, I think I was really just kind of piling it all in, and it was really trapped in there. And I think I noticed that there was something not quite right. I was feeling a lot of stress. I was starting to worry a lot more than I used to. And I think my wife, who is far more intuitive than I am, she saw something that wasn't quite right, and it concerned her. So she knew that I had grown up Catholic my entire life. I went to Catholic schools all the way through college, but also that religion wasn't really playing a very big role in my life. So I didn't have any kind of a spiritual backdrop, which I was totally fine with, and frankly still am. But she gave me a book on meditation, and she said, "I don't know much about this, but you're kind of coming part of the seams, and I think you really need this." And knowing that I'm kind of more of a do-it-yourselfer, she said, I could probably relate to these concepts. So it took me a little while. I kind of investigated Buddhism, which was kind of a whole new experience for me. I didn't, because mindfulness, some of the roots really are in Buddhism. And that's what I first related it to. So it kind of took me on this kind of winding journey to learn about what is mindfulness, what is meditation. And, it wasn't really until I saw some of the videos from the Mind and Life Institute, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but the Dalai Lama had a collaboration with scientists who were investigating mindfulness and meditation and the effects on the brain. And there was a fellow there named Dr. Richard Davidson from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I saw his video and some of the images of the brain. I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff, like, it actually works, and I don't have to believe in anything. It's just like, so it really kind of hooked me in. And I'd say that that's really where it started. I mean, the journey is a whole nother story of like what it's done for my life and my experiences, but that was the initial beginning of it, thanks to my wife.
Okay, very nice. And so, what got you was the scientific evidences, was it?
Yeah, that's really what it was for me, and it still to this day is what really keeps me curious about it. I'm very fascinated by Buddhism. I think it's a very interesting religion. If you pull it out, it's like almost this perfect guide to life, and it has nothing to do with any sort of a deity. It's a non-theistic religion, which for me is very appealing because you don't get bogged down in a lot of this stuff. But then again, it is a religion, so there's a lot of what's going on in Buddhism that I like to subscribe to as far as kind of like a life path. But specifically to meditation, the science behind it is what keeps me fascinated, and I really consider it, just like good nutrition or going to the gym. It's mental training, emotional training, and I think it's fascinating to watch the inner workings of the mind and how the mind continues to rotate and cycle. And it's taught me a lot about myself, but I also understand why it's happening because of what the science is doing. And that's still progressing, but in the last 10 years, I mean, we've learned so much about it that for me, it's, I guess, in a way, it sort of validated it for me.
Nice, very nice. Peter, if someone that has never heard about mindfulness asks you, what's mindfulness? How would you explain that for this person?
Um, mindfulness, and this may sound maybe simplified, but it's simply really, in my opinion, it's building a relationship with an observer that we all have. It's a part of us, but I think there's a and I don't know if it's a mechanism in the brain. I don't know how people want to look at consciousness. Nobody really understands consciousness, but at least fundamentally, it's pretty hard to dispute that consciousness doesn't exist. It actually happens because we're having this experience right now. And I think generally through life, when we feel emotions, we feel stress, we feel joy, excitement, whatever, we're kind of distracting ourselves. We're just kind of weaving around, trying to avoid difficult things. Our brain is obviously providing the guidance through the dopamine hit of what it wants to do, what it likes to do. And oftentimes we're just not really paying attention. Mm-hmm. And to pay attention actually requires some discipline. But that doesn't mean it's overly strict or punitive. It just requires some sort of practice. So in my mind, mindfulness is integrating some discipline with the chaos of life and being able to watch this whole thing unfold. And that observer is in there somewhere. The observer is a non-judgmental part of your existence, of your consciousness. It's aware of feelings, it's aware of thoughts, it's aware of sensations, but it's not reacting to them. And it's kind of like it's always on, but we don't really see it on a regular basis. And for me, when you practice meditation, you engage in something that allows you to develop that relationship with the observer. And then mindfulness is kind of, for me, is like the outgrowth of that. So on a day-to-day basis, I'm being more mindfully aware of what's happening around me because the observer is a little bit more engaged. So if that makes sense to you, that's kind of what mindfulness is to me. It's just seeing things as they are. We don't know the truth of everything. Obviously, don't know the meaning of life, but it is just kind of seeing what things are at the current moment and not having a sense of reaction emotionally or triggering, on a day-to-day basis.
So, getting one point that you said in your webpage, you ask, "What's life?" Is it right? Yeah. And how would you say, like, what's life? What would be your answer for that?
Well, you're right. We have this question, what is life? And I don't know if I have an answer. I'm not sure if the answer is even there for us to find. Yeah. I think much of it is just the curious pursuit of that answer. And as it unfolds, we just had a great conversation with the director of mindfulness research at UMass Medical School. And he said that he used to ponder this question a lot, like, what is the true self? Like, what is life all about? And it's a convenient distraction, and it's very intellectually fascinating. But just the pursuit of the question was taking him away from the experiences of life, which mm-hmm. is what life is all about. So, in other words, like, not trying to pursue the answer to that question endlessly and backing off of it, he actually kind of found out what life is about. It's about just the experience of it. And these conversations like you and I are having, and just being aware of it and open to it, that's really what I've come to. It's not about expectations or growth or becoming something different than you already are or aspirations. It's about living in this moment right now, because that's literally all you have. And the rest of it is just a machination of your memories or your ability to think in the future. None of that exists. It's just this conversation that exists. So when I say what is life, it's right now talking to Victor.
Okay, very nice, very nice, cool. I have one more question for you about that. Actually, two. The first one would be, how do you train your mind? So, because we are talking here to talk about mindfulness and to facilitate the access to mindfulness to everyone that watch what we are talking. So how would you explain to people, how do you practice mindfulness? How do you train your mind on a daily basis?
Okay. Well, on a daily basis, to be very specific, I have a meditation practice. So it's integrated into a morning routine for me, which really is an hour of mindfulness practice. So in the morning, I'll do some yoga. I roll out a yoga mat, and it's very light. It's just kind of stretching, as I might call it. Mm-hmm. And it's just some things I picked up and learned from taking yoga classes. I'll have some coffee. I'll read for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then I'll sit and meditate for 20 to 30 minutes. So all in all, it's about an hour of kind of disciplined, regular practice. But throughout the day, and I've kind of heard people talk about this, that their meditation practice really extends into the rest of their day. And um, one of the things I've heard somebody recently say was that equanimity is the foundation for your intuition. And so equanimity is kind of like a state of contentment or just present moment awareness, I guess, without any real emotions pulling at you. You can feel it, but it's not pulling you in any direction. So anytime during the day, I can relate kind of as a mindfulness practice. When I feel something pulling at me, I just step back and I just try and maintain some level calmness. And then the answers tend to come out like, what am I going to do next? Or how should I respond to this? Or how should I engage in this activity? So those become little awareness moments throughout the day, which are really an extension of my practice. So practicing mindfulness throughout the day is not about meditating all throughout the day. It's about taking the time in those moments where you kind of catch yourself getting tugged or pulled and just stepping back and just kind of like opening your eyes to what's happening.
Nice. And just because you touched the point, I was in a class a few days ago, and someone asked, "What's equanimity?" And how would you explain this to people? How do you understand deeper equanimity? If you would explain to someone that have never heard about it.
Yeah, well, again, not being an expert in this subject at all, I can only speak through my understanding of it from conversation and how I experience it. So it kind of lines up with what people have told me.
Mm-hmm.
For me, equanimity is no matter the turmoil or the chaos or the emotion or the anxiety or the excitement. I mean, I'm not going to label feelings as all, depressing or bad when they're just anxiety. I mean, you can be really excited about something and it's equally distracting. Is to be able to hold that kind of in suspension and also integrate the kind of cognitive mind or intellectual mind into the process of thinking. So to me, equanimity, while it happens kind of probably on a continuous unrolling basis, it's a little bit of a pause in time to integrate all of that information and process it, not just through kind of verbally or language. It's really about the sensations that are all around me, including my thoughts, my emotions, my feelings, into one mind. And so it can happen in a second. It can last for 5 minutes, but it's just a sensation that you are collecting all of the necessary inputs to make the decision or the choice or to move to the next stage in your day, your life, whatever it is. So to me, it's kind of like a contentment and understanding. It's like, it's like you watch a movie, right? I mean, you're not in the movie, but you're feeling it. And you're in a movie theater, but you're just seeing it happen. So there's a separation between the emotions you're feeling and real life. And so in my feeling, it's like on a day-to-day basis, I'm watching the movie of my life. And as an observer, I don't have to be immersed in it, so it's just like dragging me away. I can actually sit and watch it for a moment. And that's the feeling to me of being in a state of equanimity. Nice. It's my life, but I'm not necessarily. The script is writing itself, and I'm kind of watching it happen. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, of course. Let me check if I understood you. So you mean that you are not your thoughts? That's it. Okay.
Thank you for distilling that in less than 10 words. That was really good. It took me 5 minutes, but you got that.
No,
nailed.
but that was perfect.
Exactly right.
I think I could really understand all the points. That was pretty cool. And there is a big thing now that's coming on the media that people usually say the mindfulness or to meditate. They say like how to, I don't know if I can get the right word for that, but like how to clean your mind, So I have heard that a lot of media. So what do you think about this call, learn a way how to clean your mind?
So I'm trying to interpret that. When you first say it, it sounds appealing, but it also sounds a little bit. It sounds like you're trying to change something versus just witnessing and observing the way it is. And I think cleaning the mind is kind of like, I can understand that from the point of view of maybe purification, like where you clean up your diet. And I think that may be an outgrowth of it, of mindfulness. I mean, mindfulness in some ways is kind of like, mindfulness and equanimity is kind of like a gateway in many ways to making changes in life that allow you to not just survive, but actually thrive. And thrive to me is not about doing well financially or having lots of friends. It's about just a sense of joy, and just having contentment, whatever your circumstances are. So if I understand what you're saying there correctly, I mean, I think the cleaning maybe comes later through the process, but it isn't like, in many ways, I think of it as a natural outgrowth. It's almost inevitable. So if someone has the intention of like, I'm going to clean things up, I'm going to fix this, that may not be the place to start. You know what I mean? It's not like, you either want a clean kitchen or you don't, and the cleaning fluid will do it for you once you decide to apply it. But it's like, if you want a clean mind or you don't, and the techniques and the tools and the practices, that may be kind of an outgrowth of it. So I guess I'm just saying, in one sense, aspiring to clean your mind, you might have to go through some dirt before you get there. You have to actually accept the crud that's there before you can attempt to clean it, and the cleaning kind of starts to happen.
Okay.
That's where your intentions are set, and then you let your intuition guide you, versus trying to rearrange everything manually. It's more of a natural process.
Okay, very nice, very nice.
Do you agree with that at all? I mean, is that the essence of what you were asking me in terms of what really people are saying? I don't want to misinterpret it.
No, I really understood what you said, and that was the question. Thank you for answering that. And what's the practice that you use more? It's like sitting and paying attention on your breathing, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I'm actually a real proponent of sitting meditation. I mean, I know people engage in other forms of what meditation could be, walking meditation. Some people have even talked about being in meditation during conversation, which is interesting. So, I mean, they're all different variations, I guess you could consider meditation. But in particular, sitting quietly is so unique and such a different experience from anything else in life that I find a real value in engaging in that practice. So for me, I guess if I had to label it, I go between maybe sort of a Zen practice, which is just sitting and just realizing that you're sitting, but not focusing on anything in particular, and maybe something more of Vipassana oriented, where I might be just focusing on my breathing or finding one point of focus before I expand into just general awareness. But I think just at the root of it, whatever you're going to do, sitting quietly and being able to watch your mind, even if you daydream for 5 or 10 minutes, eventually you'll stop daydreaming and you'll go, oh, I was daydreaming, and that really only comes with sitting in a quiet, still position, in my purposes. Otherwise, there's just too many other distractions. So there's nothing quite like it, from my experience, as to just sitting quietly.
Very nice. Peter, how to meditate this podcast? Why did you prepare it? Why did you do it? Essentially.
Yeah, well, my great friend Jason Hollander, who I do the show with, was on the same kind of path with me. We've known each other for many, many years, and but we hadn't communicated for quite a few years until, I don't know, for some reason, serendipity. I mean, we both had life circumstances that brought us together, and we found out that we were both interested in mindfulness and meditation. He had started a group at NYU, co-founded a group there for people to practice in meditation and mindfulness. And so we started sharing ideas and sharing stories and talking about the learning experience. And we were actually having dinner in New York City over pizza. And my wife was listening to us banter back and forth about mindfulness and meditation, and kind of bemoaning that there wasn't, at that time, we didn't feel like there was somebody out there talking to us. There were a lot of really good teachers, but it wasn't kind of at the regular kind of average guy level, if you will, right? The language wasn't there. It was very affected, and it was just it just didn't connect with us, but we could see the value in the practice. So she said, hey, why don't you guys do a podcast? You can talk to each other all you want, and then you can invite on these experts and kind of get it distilled into something you can understand, and maybe you'll help other people who are like you. So we said, hey, great. So it became a real project for us, and we literally sent out emails to these big name meditation teachers and neuroscientists, Richard Davidson and Sharon Salzberg were our first two guests, and they said, sure. We're like, really? Like, we're nobodies. And so that really turned us on, and we thought, well, if they'll talk to us, then who else will talk to us? And we just kept the ball rolling and have really created a dialogue that we think is fairly unique in the mindfulness community, because, like I said, we're just two regular average guys, and having these conversations makes it a lot of fun for us. And I'm, to be quite honest with you, I learned so much this way rather than reading it all in books. Yeah. These conversations are invaluable to me. And we've heard some great feedback from other people who feel like they're in the conversation, but we're asking questions from the perspective that they would be at too.
Okay, so it's a way to facilitate access to people.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd say selfishly, it's a way for me to learn about the practice, and for Jay and I to spend time together talking about it. But in the end result, we're able to share it with other folks as well. And I think it's a nice experience to have other people hearing and witnessing our revelations, our own personal understandings come to light, and then they kind of join us along the way. So we've heard from people say, you guys make a lot of sense, and it's helped me out a lot, and that's tremendous. That's tremendous.
That's a way to show people that meditation is a thing from this world and not from another world, isn't it?
100%. I mean, if I can do it, if it's not weird for me, and it was, honestly, when I first started meditating and trying to learn about this stuff, it was totally weird. Like my mind was playing tricks on me, and I didn't know what I was really trying to do. And, over time, I've realized that this is really not a big deal. It's just like going to the gym. It's just like making a healthy smoothie in the morning. I mean, it's just the right thing to do. It's good for me, and there's nothing weird about it. So if I can feel that way, and Jay can feel that way, then I know that just about everybody else can feel that way. I feel the same thing that you're saying. It's just general training. It's normal, and it's for everyone. Absolutely. It absolutely is for everyone. I really feel that strongly that the more I talked about it, and I've had my doubts, I've been a little skeptical at times, but the more I talk to people and I see the movement growing, it's pretty powerful. It's a way to connect and unify people, unlike I think anything else we have going right now. I mean, it's not it doesn't differentiate between people. It doesn't divide. It's really unifying. And anytime someone can sit quietly and watch their mind, if they can actually have the patience to do that, they learn a lot about themselves, but they also learn about how they relate to the world. And so, in a grand scale, it's quite a powerful movement. Yeah,
and with your talk, I would like to correct my speak what I said. It's for everyone who wants it, because there are people that just don't want it, and that's fine as well.
I can't agree with you more. I think that's really one of the hallmarks of people who are in mindfulness is they're not proselytizing. They're not out there trying to convert people. Yeah. It's not like a belief system that they want people to adopt. I've never met anybody who's out there trying to do that. It's just a conversation that is growing because it's all inclusive and nobody's excluded. The conversation just continues to grow. And so if you want in, it's there for you. And if you want out, well, go ahead. There's no group. Yeah. So I think you're absolutely right. If somebody doesn't want to do it, then don't do it. It's not important.
A very important thing that would be good to say to people, I think, would be that, like, mindfulness is not a religion, and is not related to any religion. It's not related, even if it has like Buddhism-based relation. It's not related to Buddhism. It's just related to the technique that comes from Buddha, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think also what I've heard, and it's actually allowed me to appreciate other religions to a greater extent, because I could see there's the seeds of this wisdom sprinkled throughout all different sorts of religions. And when you realize that, it's more unifying than separating. And so in that sense, you find the value of it because, I mean, I don't think Buddha was really trying to start a religion. He was somebody who found a method, a practice in life that allowed him to live life in a more full and enriching way. So when you kind of deconstruct it that way, it has nothing to do with religion. I mean, it really gets back to just the basic fundamentals of life.
Nice. And one last question: if everyone was listening to you now, what would you say to everyone?
Wait, who's everyone? Like everyone?
Everyone.
let's see if everyone's listening. Anything I want to say, like
anything you want to say.
Okay, so let's just stick to mindfulness. I would say when it comes to mindfulness, don't have any expectations. And I'm speaking from a beginner's perspective. The beginner's mind is something that I feel like I'll always have. I feel like a beginner, even though I've meditating for 6 or 7 years, been investigating mindfulness. I don't feel any different than I did before. It's just I have a better understanding, but I'm still the same person. And I think that is a really valuable perspective, is that when you start laying out expectations or benchmarks, like I got to get to here, I think it's counterproductive. And the sooner you can kind of avoid that pitfall and just accept whatever comes and not really set any bar of expectation, you'll be better off. And just maintain that curiosity, because the curiosity is really the pathway to a life of integration and joy and happiness. And that's what keeps you moving. But don't set any expectations. That's what mindfulness has done for me. It's taken years to unravel some of the expectations I had placed on myself for 40 plus years until I engaged in the practice. And that has been a process. So the sooner you can drop your ambitions and your expectations of the practice, the better off you're going to be, I think. The more fulfilling it'll be for you.
Okay. Thank you very much for the conversation and for
Thank
all
you.
the explanations.
I don't know if it's helpful, but I'm trying.
That was great. I'm pretty sure that was great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon, Peter. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Victor. Appreciate it.